Okay, it looks like recording is on. I'm happy to have Chris Jacob with us today from the National Weather Service office. So, Chris, I will let you do the introduction and turn it over to you.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here. See if we can get that up and running. Just take me a second here. You see a black screen?
Yes, I do. So I
That's a
unmute.
good sign. Now you see that change.
Yes.
All right. We're looking good. Okay. I'm Chris Jacob, one of the meteorologists here at the National Weather Service in Wichita. Just tell you a little bit about me. I'm originally from Nebraska. So I started my career out in Jackson, Mississippi back in February of 2000. So I've been with the Weather Service going on, just a little over 25 years now. I was down there for 2 years and then I transferred up to Wichita and I've been here 23 years and counting now. So Wichita and Kansas has pretty much become my second home and I really enjoy it here coming from eastern Nebraska. It's about 300 miles. My hometown's about 300 miles north of here. It's unbelievable how different the weather is here, how much warmer it is and how much less snow compared to eastern Nebraska, which the older I get, the more and more I'm a fan of warmer weather and less snow. But that's enough about me. We'll go ahead and jump right into this. It's pretty straightforward. We'll just I'll share some information kind of behind the scenes and some of the technology and tools and products that we have available. And then we'll jump into our website and kind of show folks, where you can kind of jump in and find some more fire weather information and even forecast information. Our site it's got a lot of great resources and stuff. The only thing is it's probably not the easiest to navigate because a lot of stuff can be buried in there. You have to kind of dig around a little bit, and hopefully I can show people where to go and find some of that more hidden information. Just kind of jumping in. There's a lot of different sources out there that people use for the weather apps on your phone, and a lot of different services that you can subscribe to. And it's because they're pulling that from our database, and then they're repackaging it and sending it out in a different form. So the advantage that we have, and this is how to find us, is go to weather.gov. And if you click anywhere on that map, that will get you to the local National Weather Service office of interest. The advantage we have is we have the human component still tied to the forecasts and all the products and everything that we issue. A lot of those apps and everything, when you go back to that, I'm not going to single out any of the apps, but we know a lot of those apps are just automated, just strictly off of the computer models, where we still have the ability to go in and interact with stuff and select different models based off of our experience, which should most of the time provide a much better product on timing and magnitude of weather events that impact the area. So if you click anywhere, like I said, if you click anywhere, that will get you to the local office. And this is what it'll look like. All the web pages are pretty similar. They do change a little bit, but you're going to get kind of the same information. And a lot of this is we're going to talk about some of the fire weather planning tools and where they are hidden on our website, and how to find some of that information to kind of help you plan and also just look at the forecast in general. There's a lot of useful stuff there. First, let's take a look at this Grassland Fire Danger Index. And if you're familiar with this is something that we have developed locally. And what that is, we also call it GFDI for short. All it is a science-based index tool that uses the weather forecast conditions to estimate the rate of spread of a grass fire. So if you were to have a fire start the values that we have with this index would tell you how fast that fire could potentially spread that day. So how is it calculated? If you just want to write down, especially Marcy, I expect you to write this formula down and memorize this, and you could just stop right here. But this is what's behind the scenes on GFDI. That's how it's calculated. But I'm not about formulas and everything, so we'll get that off the screen. So it's just 4 elements that it's really looking at: wind and wind gusts, how dry the air is, relative humidity, and then it also looks at temperatures, how warm or cool it is, and then curing, you know, how dry is the grass, and if the grass starts greening up like it's supposed to start greening up this time of the year. If you get more moisture and with the warmer temperatures, that warm season grasses start to warm up. But the one that carries the most weight in this formula, if I was to go back and look at it, but we're not going to look at that scary formula, wind and wind gusts actually carry the most weight and is very sensitive to that. So as the winds increase and the wind gusts start spiking up, the GFDI index values respond, you know, not in, if the wind goes from 10 to 20 miles an hour, it really responds exponentially for the GFDI index. So you can get this from our webpage, and I'll show you later on when we go to navigate the webpage and everything. We put a 7-day forecast out, and this is your guide to just kind of look at the graphic 1 through 7 days. Is it a safe day to burn, or is it an unsafe day to burn? And also keep in mind the Grassland Fire Danger Index, it doesn't account for rainfall or snow. It's just looking at the current conditions, and it doesn't, there's no rain in there. So if we got like snow on the ground, or it just recently rained a bunch and we got a lot of heavy rain, it's definitely going to, this number won't be representative until those grasses dry out or until that snow melts, and then it'll be more representative. So what safe burning looks like on this index, it's in that low to moderate or high area. And then I also want to, you know, reiterate, when you get into the high category, you know, things can still get a little dicey, but this is much safer if you're going to do outdoor burning, especially prescribed burning. I know there's some locations in the Flint Hills and stuff, they like to burn when it's like very high and stuff, which they kind of need a little bit more wind because of some of their topography. They might need to jump a ravine or something like that. And they're allowed to do that because of the open territory and, you know, not having many structures out there, and just because it's the wide open prairie. So once you get into the very high, the extreme, and the catastrophic, I mean, that's extremely unsafe. And we always recommend you want to avoid any kind of outdoor burning in those situations, just because if the fire or spark does go into some grass or something, it's going to be very difficult to control. And I want to show this video here. This was done on a very high fire danger level, and you're going to hear the noise and the speed. And if you see the guys off in the distance going off the right of the screen, they have drip torches, and this is a prescribed burn that they're doing. And there's a camera that's protected in a fireproof box, and I'll just kind of let the video run. You can just hear the roar of the fire. And this is just a high grassland fire danger day. That's a pretty dramatic video, just showing you, you know, how scary these grass fires can be and how fast they can spread. And that was just on high fire danger level on the GFDI. So you could only imagine what that would look like if you got to the very high extreme or catastrophic. It would race a lot faster and be even a lot more scarier for folks. So I thought that was an interesting video just to kind of put things in perspective. And yeah, they're very difficult. I mean, if you ask any of our, emergency responders and fire department, emergency managers, I mean, once we get to that very high and extreme, I mean, it's very difficult to impossible to control any kind of fire that gets away. That's why we recommend, no outdoor burning, because you just put a lot of people at risk. You put their lives at risk because they have to go out and battle these fires. And we just want people to, be mindful and think of others and be safe, to not do any outdoor burning on those days. So at the National Weather Service, we do issue fire weather watches and red flag warnings when we're expecting extreme or catastrophic GFDI values. And what that does, it alerts fire departments, other agencies about weather conditions that could lead to that rapid and very dangerous spread of wildfire activity. If you were to have a fire, it would be, it alerts them. So that way they know. It's like for tomorrow, yeah, we're expecting very high, and we actually have watches and red flag warnings in effect out in western Kansas, and they've spread into central Kansas right now, just because of the wind and really warm conditions. Because tomorrow we're actually looking at record high temperatures where we're going to be in the low to mid 90s, which is just crazy. That's not a good sign when we're looking for rain. But yeah, it's going to be really warm tomorrow. And on those warm conditions, that just warms your fuels, and the grasses are just charged and warmed up, and any little spark, and it won't take much to get a fire started for tomorrow. So we typically average about 16 red flag warning days per year just in our coverage area in that map. That's the 26 counties that we're responsible for. And that's those red flag warnings, like I said earlier, is when we're expecting extreme or catastrophic fire weather conditions, and we'll issue those red flag warnings for any of those 26 counties. So red flag warning days, they peak during the late winter and early spring months, February, March, April. So we're on the back end of this peak here. And why is this? Why does it peak at this time of the year? Well, it just turns out Mother Nature and how the weather behaves in Kansas during February, March, and April. This is our windiest time of the year out of all the months that we have. Yeah, you can still have windy days, but on average, these three definitely have a lot more windier days. And it makes it even more challenging because that's also a lot of peak prescribed burning that happens in that same window. So to find days where you get favorable, less wind conditions, those targets are pretty small, those windows. And that's why you see when we do have a day where it's lighter winds, and I'll show this on a graphic upcoming, there will be a lot of prescribed burning and stuff. And a lot of people are helping each other. So you can't just all of a sudden everyone burn on the same day, because a lot of these people are working together, sharing resources and planning to do their burn. It's like, okay, you go today, and next time the winds are light, we'll come and help you do yours. So it's a difficult time just because it's very windy during this time of the year for Kansas. So what technology do we use at the National Weather Service to detect fires? It's actually satellite technology, and it's changed over the years. Every time they launch a next generation satellite, we're currently using the GOES-R series. And that's from 2016. And these last about 12 to about 16 years. And then they launched the next generation. So the next generation satellites are actually being built right now. And those will be launching probably in the early to mid 2030s. Those satellites will be going up. So what happens is the technology is even better, and we get better information from these satellites. These satellites, these GOES satellites, are way the heck out there. They're like over 22,000 miles away from the surface of the Earth. And they're set in this geostationary orbit where it's orbiting and looking at the same spot the entire time. So what the satellites are doing, we have different channels on it. all it's doing is detecting the heat signature from the fire on the ground. We need clear sky conditions. If we have clouds, even high, thin clouds can mask our satellites because they're going to detect the temperature of the cloud tops and not the ground. So that's why we need clear skies. But once we have clear skies, we can see the temperature of the ground. And if the ground starts heating up abnormally in a small area, we know that that's likely a grass fire. And it's pretty amazing that our satellites can detect that, because the previous generation, it used to be this coarse resolution of like 4 kilometer by 4 kilometer, but the latest GOES-R is a 2 kilometer by 2 kilometer, 875 acres. And the fire doesn't have to be 875 acres. It can be as small as like 10 to 15 acres. In some cases, we've even seen it smaller than that. That's just how sensitive and the improvements on the technology with the GOES-R satellites that we have up there. And wait till the next generation comes in. It's going to be even better resolution than what we have right now. So we also do wildfire notifications. These are issued to alert fire emergency responders. When we first launched these satellites, we just started seeing all these hot spots, and then we figured out quickly, it's like, hey, the satellite's actually able to detect grass fires. It's like, okay, what do we do with this information? We figured out, it's like, hey, we can start helping, local, counties and other agencies out to notify them that, hey, our satellite's detecting a fire and this is how it operates. So the satellite's looking down at the Earth. It takes about 70 to 90 seconds if we're in the rapid scan mode of the satellite to get into our computer systems where I can see it on my computer screen. That's a picture of what our office looks like. And then for me to send that notification out to the county and all the other agencies that are on the list, it takes me about 10 seconds to send that out. And once I hit that button, they will get that on their phones. And we have it on some of our phones just to calculate. It's probably less than 3 seconds. So it happens very fast. And why is this important? Because a lot of times when these fires sometimes are sparked or happen, they're out in the middle of nowhere. And there's no one out there to see it or respond to it. And the satellite's always looking at the ground 24/7, assuming we have clear skies. And the counties and the fire departments don't have to rely on someone actually calling the fire in. We can see it with our satellites and help notify them, hey, there's a grass fire, and we see it on our satellites. It's just to help get the fire department out there quicker. And if you ask Marcy, she could tell you how valuable that information is, because, it lets them know right away, hey, we got a hot spot, we got the notification, we could send our fire folks out there immediately. We don't have to wait till that first call 911, which could come 5, maybe 10 minutes later, whatever that time is. And a fire, especially on a very high or extreme day, can spread extremely fast, and time is so crucial in that early notification phase. So this is what it looks like, grass fires. This is on just a low to moderate day on our GFDI index. All these little flickers, these are actually hot spots detected by the satellite. This is what it looks like on my computer screen. So on a day when it's very favorable, you have a lot of prescribed burn. I mean, there's like hundreds of fires going out there across Kansas, especially in the Flint Hills, where they do a lot of burning. Now, unfortunately, we've ran into these rare catastrophic fire danger days. And the two most memorable was the December 15th of 2021. In my entire career at the National Weather Service, I worked a lot of severe weather events, a lot of winter events, flooding events. That day of December 15th, 2021 was the busiest day of my career by far, just because we had winds of 80 to 100 miles an hour with just clear skies and clouds moving in. Obviously, a lot of dust was kicked up and some storms did develop. Man, we had everything going on that day. It was, and then the fire started, and it was just crazy. And then we just had this event just, about a month ago, March 14th of 2025, we had another one of those catastrophic days where our GFDI index was about as high as it goes. And we don't see these very often. These are very dangerous situations. And we'll go ahead and kind of look at what that looked like. This is the satellite imagery from that December 15th, which started that mega 4-county fire up in central Kansas. And what caused these fires to develop in the first place? Because we saw them starting out in western Kansas and they were just rapidly spreading eastward. What it was those 80 to 100 mile per hour wind gusts actually coming down and knocking power lines down. Once we realized that, we send out notifications to central Kansas, some of our counties up there, and I said, hey, we're seeing a bunch of wildfires, spreading rapidly from western Kansas, and we believe that's the leading edge of those damaging 80 to 100 mile per hour wind gusts knocking power lines, and it's coming, just to let folks know. And the unfortunate thing is it started a very large fire, which they categorize it as a mega grass fire because of the size of it. And this was some of the messaging. I actually created this graphic for that day because of that life-threatening grass fire. And this is the message that I sent out, because they were doing evacuations and stuff because the fire was being driven by those 80 to 100 mile per hour wind gusts. They tried to go up there. There was so much dust. You had a dust storm going, and with the winds that strong, the smoke doesn't really disperse very high. It stays very low to the ground. And they were in this like choking dust storm, and they could smell smoke, but they couldn't see where the fire was because the dust was so thick, and they had to eventually call it off. It's like, we can't fight this because we're putting our lives at risk. We have the ability, because we can see it from satellites, we can kind of show where the outlines of the fire, the heat signature is, and where it's going, looking at the surface observations and the winds and everything. But yeah, that was a really dangerous event, and there was a lot of cattle that were lost, and I think there was 2 fatalities because of this extreme fire that just was raging across some of those counties in central Kansas, driven by those winds. And this was about like 8 to 10 hours later. This image is from space. We have these polar orbiting satellites. And what you see, the bigger cities, those are actually the city lights. But up in central Kansas, we know we don't have any large cities up there. And that was the actual outline of that grass fire that was still burning well into the night. And the satellite visible imagery, the nighttime visible imagery, was picking up the outline of that grass fire. So this is what happened on the satellite imagery, from March 14th event, just about a month ago. And you can actually see all that dust. We saw that coming several hours in advance. It was picked up over New Mexico and West Texas, and it was just traveling along those southwest westerly winds and heading up. And you can see, I got it outlined, Lake Cheney, and then the outline of Wichita there. And all that dust come up here. And then all the hot spots, those were all wildfires. And some of them are big enough where you could even see the smoke plumes that started developing off of some of those wildfires. We did have a few fires here. You saw a few flickers. If I can point my cursor, there's one there. There's one south of Wichita, but luckily those didn't turn into what was experienced down in Oklahoma, because those were some pretty big fires there. We did have an unfortunate incident. I don't know if you could see it on the screen. We did have another fire that went across Woodson County, and it caused damage where a nursing home was burned down. They had to evacuate a nursing home. So thankfully, no one was hurt in that situation. But it's just, when you get these catastrophic fire conditions, just there's a lot of volatility, and these fires can spread real rapidly, and it brings, people's lives in jeopardy and structures, just because of how volatile the situation was. This is what it looked like. The day in Wichita, it almost looked like we were living on the planet Mars, because of all that thick dust come up here. I remember looking at images in Mars, so I threw this together. I said, hey, we just experienced what it's like living on the planet Mars, although we're a lot warmer than Mars because usually Mars is pretty freaking cold. But the dust, that's a real problem on Mars because it's so dry and there just isn't any water. Well, they're trying to find water, but maybe they did. I don't know. But it's definitely going to be frozen. But it's very dusty, and it's kind of what it looked like in Wichita that day. So people will ask this. Yes.
Chris, can I interrupt for just a second?
Yeah.
Sherry had asked, and I don't know if you know, how many forecast offices or how widespread is the Grassland Fire Danger Index used? Is it only in Kansas, or does it spread out into other states, or do you know?
There is it's mostly regional. We shared the science and information with some of our surrounding offices. And unfortunately, when it comes to fire weather, every office has a little different variation on how they do their fire weather forecasting and the products they issue. This GFDI came from someone we sent to Australia, and they're like some of the fire experts, and we adopted it to Kansas, and we find that it works extremely well. We know some other offices are running it, but a lot of them don't put the emphasis on it like we do, and they kind of stick to their old ways. So it makes it a little difficult at times to coordinate things because we know the GFDI formula is a little more sensitive to winds. They're more sensitive. We're finding our neighbors are more sensitive to the RH. So we have to do this collaboration when we're elevating fire danger risk, and we're trying to issue headlines for fire weather watches and everything. So it can be a little challenging at times. We have to get a little buy-in and share the meteorology, but not everyone is using it. And there's other tools out there, and we look at those as well, but we really like the GFDI because it's very simple and it's straightforward. And we like simple, straightforward things when we're sharing with all of our core partners and everything. We don't like to make things any more complicated than it needs to be.
All right. Perfect. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. People will get this question a lot. Do you guys have a mobile weather app? You know, because you have a website and stuff. Unfortunately, we're a federal agency and we are not allowed to have weather apps. However, if you have an iPhone or an Android, I'll keep this up for anyone that wants to. You can kind of create a Pseudo app and this icon will pop up. I'll leave this up a little bit for the iPhone users. All you do is go to our website, wherever you are, what location or what page you're looking at our website. If you start this process, it will create an app and it will go right to that point. And what I like to do and share it with others is like, let's say you live, okay, let's say, for example, let's use Marcy. Let's say she lives in Hillsboro. I don't know where she lives exactly, but somewhere up there. Let's say she lives in Hillsboro. If you click on the point, the lat lawns of Hillsboro, and then you start this process from our point and click page, it will pull up that 7-day forecast right from that point. So that's kind of a neat launch point to put that. But you can start that launch point wherever you want, wherever you are on our website. And this will kind of create that Pseudo app. So this is if you have an Android, this is how to do the same thing. I'll leave this up for a little bit. So it's kind of a poor man's way to develop and get a weather app and the icon to show up on your phone. That way you don't have to go to the web page, go to the website, navigate through. If there's one point, in our website that you go to a lot, you could just generate this shortcut kind of a Pseudo app from that location. All right. So now that we've kind of shared a lot of the tools that we have and the products that we put out there, let's say we want to do a burn. Let's begin. It's when you're doing a burn, it's a planning process. you just don't look at it and say, well, I'm going to wait for the first light day, and oh, that looks like tomorrow, I'm going to go out there and burn. No, it takes a lot of planning. Especially if you're burning a lot of area, like some of our ranchers and landowners are burning several, acres and everything. They're planning this months in advance, trying to get all the resources and everything, and their fire breaks, everything that they need to do that safely. So this is what it looks like. You need these ideal burning conditions where it's safe, because you don't want to put other people's, structures and land. You don't want to start burning some of their stuff down or some of their grass if they weren't planning on it. These is the weather conditions, and this comes from the fire weather section in the notebooks when we go to those burn workshops and everything. This is the information that people are looking for. This is what an ideal prescribed burning weather conditions look like. And it has the wind speed, direction, and a lot of people are waiting for a certain wind direction. Maybe they have Uncle Tom's house off to the north or something. So they definitely don't want to burn with south winds. Maybe they'll wait for a day where they get north winds, where they'll start it near his property and the fire will run southward away. So it'll keep Uncle Tom's house safe and everything. But these are the conditions where you will get a moderately intense fire, and it's easier to manage and control, but we're still messing with Mother Nature. Sometimes Mother Nature can just throw a curveball at us, a little change in the wind, but that's why there's a lot of planning that goes in place to try and do this safely. And temperature inversions are a big thing. You want to be burning fire, by late morning and afternoon, and you definitely don't want to do it early in the morning or at night, because what happens is we get these temperature inversions, and what that does, it puts a lid on how high the smoke is. So when we have that temperature inversion, especially during the mornings and nighttime, if you were to burn a fire and there's not much wind outside, it would keep that smoke really low to the ground, and that's not a good situation at all. And especially if the smoke was to go across a road or something like that, it would make it very dangerous. It's almost like fog at that point, because it would stay so low to the ground. So, and plus, the fire is not very efficient, because you want to get that smoke up and away from it so you can keep oxygen coming into the fire to keep it going and to keep it moving along. All right. Now that we kind of looked at all that stuff, let's go to our webpage. I'm going to kind of show you some areas that you can navigate around for some fire weather stuff. And let's just practice some navigation. So I'm going to jump out of my presentation. And Charlene, can you see our webpage?
Yes.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure it's showing the right thing here. All right, so if you go to our webpage, weather.gov/ICT, or if you go to weather.gov and you just click on your area of interest, it should pull you to our webpage. So let's do an example here for El Dorado. So I'm going to move my cursor and just click on El Dorado. And that will get you to our 7-day forecast. You have the graphics that run across the top for each day, for each period. And these are in 12-hour periods, nighttime, daytime, and it goes through 7 days. And then here's the detailed forecast. So a lot of you are familiar with this. So I'll show you where to navigate around this to get more additional information and hourly stuff. And this is really helpful for a lot of people, is this hourly weather forecast, especially for people that are doing some burning, or maybe you have an outdoor event and you're looking for certain weather conditions. You have an outdoor party or something and you don't want a lot of wind, or you want certain temperatures. This can be very helpful, where it pulls up this interface and you can turn on, off all kinds of different weather elements. And then if we're doing fire stuff, the people burning fires, they're interested in these elements, the mixing height, transport winds. And then you can also look at our grassland fire danger index as well. And scrolling down, this is an hour by hour forecast, depending on what elements you click on. For example, here, this is the temperature and this is the dew point. You can see how it changes hour by hour. And the gray areas, anytime you see this grayed section, that's representative of nighttime when the sun is down. And then once you get to the light section, that's daylight hours. And these adjust automatically with respect to the sunrise and sunset time. So it's all an automated process. And what this is showing is just 2 days of data, 48 hours of data. And if you want to move forward to the next 48 hours, you just click on this button, forward 2 days, and it will generate again. And the new map comes up. Now I'm looking at Saturday and Sunday's forecast and what that looks like. And wow, look at all these chances of rain that we have down here. So we have pretty good chances of rain and how much rainfall we're expecting during those periods. So fingers crossed, hopefully we do get in on that rain. Now, I'm going to show you another version of this because this is a little busy. There's a much friendlier version. And if you scroll down, click on this tabular forecast. This is the graphical one, but if you, like me, I like to look at tabular numbers. It'll be the same data, but it's going to look a little bit different. As soon as I click on that, now you get the hour by hour and just tabular number formats instead of all those symbols and everything. So this is a little bit cleaner and easier to look at. And I think a lot of our people that are doing prescribed burns and planning, they prefer this format versus the graphical format. It's just a lot easier to print out and read and understand compared to, I don't know, maybe they made that other one for us specifically, but this is just a much friendlier version. So the cool thing about all this is, you know, wherever you click on that point, it's that forecast for that particular point, and I can go forwards and backwards and look at all the hourly data from, you know, right now through the next 7 days. And you can look for specific weather information. And if we're doing prescribed burns, I'd be clicking on some of this fire weather stuff and turning those on. And then those would show up down below here as well. And then I can look for information, knowing if I was to go back on to here, let me, my prescribed burning, my ideal prescribed burning, if I drag that over here. And if I look at all those, it's like I can look for weather conditions and mixing height and everything, turn those fire weather buttons on to look for values in those ranges. Then I know I have a good, safe burning day to do the burns that I have to do. So let me back out of this, get back to our home page. So we also have a lot of other additional resources other than just the point and click, but the point and click is very powerful for hourly weather stuff. There you can see that's the red flag warning for tomorrow. We issued that today. Is our other fire weather information is if you come to forecast, highlight forecast, just hover over that and go to fire weather. That will get you to our fire weather page where we have even more fire weather information is stored in this location. So you have current conditions. If you want to look at graphical current conditions, you just click on that. It's going to pull up a weather map. And this updates every 5 minutes for the wind conditions and the default setting. You can kind of change settings around and pull up different products. We can look at clouds. We can look at different weather parameters and stuff. And we can also look at different products and stuff. This is mainly for aviation and stuff. And there's some other tools here. It's a lot of busy information, but the default's usually pretty good enough where it has satellite and radar imagery and the surface observations that you need to kind of pretty much help you. Okay, what's currently going on? Is there any storms out there, snow out there, satellite imagery? I got clear skies. Which way are the winds coming from? What the temperatures are? So it's a really good link that we have on there. And like I said, this updates about every 5 minutes. So it's pretty useful. We also do have a text format. And this only updates every hour though, but it'll be for the entire state of Kansas, and it's broken out in segments: Northwest, Southwest, Southeast. So there's information there. And here's our Grassland Fire Danger Index, or the GFDI. If you click on this graphic, this will get you this big blown up image. That's the one for today. And then if you look down below, that's the forecast for each particular day. And sure enough, if we look at for tomorrow, and why we have that red flag warning in effect for those western counties is because our GFDI index is reaching into the extreme category. So that's why that red flag warning is in effect. So just looking at this, if I was to plan a burn over the next 7 days, I might want to look at days 3 through 7. However, we're expecting rain, during days 3 and 4. So might not be a good day to burn. You have to pay attention to that. But GFDI doesn't know that. It doesn't know if it's going to rain or if the ground's wet or if it's going to snow or anything. It doesn't look at precipitation potential. It just looks at the winds, the temperature, and knows the curing of the grass and the relative humidity. That's all that it looks at. But it's just a good, easy guide to, is this a good, safe day to burn? Yes or no? Is there a question?
Hey, Chris. Yes. How far ahead can you look at the data to get a good burn? So is 7 days about the max you would look out, or can you go farther? What's your recommendation?
You can go farther, but the predictability is going to drop off considerably. And even once you get into days 6 and 7, there's still a little unpredictability. We're not as confident there. And you can watch that these graphics can sometimes change as day 6 and 7 gets closer to, tomorrow and stuff like that. It's weather, it's not perfect science, but it's the models, the improvements in the models are definitely way better today. But yeah, planning beyond days 8 and stuff like that, we don't put any info out there. I know there's longer range stuff out there, but I'll just tell you right now, it's not the most reliable. Because one day it looks like, okay, we got a great burning day. You come and look at it the next day, it's like, oh man, now it's like got snow or rain. There's a lot of changes that happen in the models once you get further out in time. So that's all. Thanks for the question. Yeah, this is a really good, quick little graphic to kind of pinpoint, which days are safe to burn and which days probably don't want to be burning because it's just too dangerous to burn. Some more information. If you scroll down on this page, if you click on a county below, this is a fire weather planning forecast. For example, we'll just go ahead and click on Marion County, and this will pull up the information for Marion County. Got to let the computer do its thing. Oh, I was going to say, maybe there isn't anything for Marion County. You just had to wait for it. Okay. And this will get you, okay, a red flag warning in effect from 11 a.m. Thursday. And that, I got to see, that probably isn't for Marion County because I don't think you guys are in a red flag warning. I must be just pulling it from just our headlines. I'm going to have to double check on that. But anyway, this is our fire weather discussion. And then it has a specific fire weather information and other weather information for Marion County for tonight, Thursday night, and Friday. And then here's the text for days beyond that. So you can quickly look at that and kind of look at our fire weather discussion. It's just a quick way to get to our fire weather discussion, kind of get in our heads, see what we're thinking and everything. Now, if you go back, and now you can click on any of these counties. We'll go ahead and click on Marion County again. We'll pick on Marcy here in Marion County. Click on that. And now you get a 3-hour forecast of our GFDI information here. And here's what it looks like. So for Thursday, 1 a.m., 4 a.m., 7 a.m., all of a sudden we get in the afternoon, 1 p.m., 4 p.m., the values are going 18, then we peak at 33. And if we come down to our scale here, very high is in that 20 to 49 range. So between 1 p.m. and probably like sometime maybe around 6 or 7 p.m., we're going to be in that very high category. So outdoor burning, you definitely don't want to do any outdoor burning. You don't even really want to do any burning just because the values are low in the morning. My gosh, if you don't get that fire put out before things start happening in the afternoon, you're going to lose control of that fire real quickly, and you're going to likely be calling the fire department or neighbors or someone to help you. You just don't even attempt to start a fire on these very high and extreme days. Just even if it's okay, it looks okay in the morning according to this index, still too dangerous, because you walk away from that fire. If it's still smoldering, the wind picks up, and next thing you know, it could be in your neighbor's yard or neighbor's field or something like that. You just want to completely avoid any days where it's very high, extreme, or catastrophic, any outdoor burning. Some other information. You can also click on this Kansas Flint Hills Smoke Management website. And I'm going to go ahead and open a new window here. And this is a really good design website. A lot of great fire weather information here. And if you click on the weather tab here, this will talk about the low level inversion. And then you can also get additional, and this is really good information here, the Kansas Mesonet weather. They have the temperature, 24-hour precip. Yeah, it really hasn't rained other than that little shower over there. And then wind direction. And this currently tells you winds are coming out of the south. If you kind of look at these flags, they always point towards where the wind is going towards. So at Wichita here, it looks like the winds are around 16, 13 miles an hour. But I want to caution people, when you're using this page, it does not update. So if I want to look at update, if I just leave this page sit here, it's not going to update and change. I need to come over and eventually refresh the page, and then it'll change, and then I'll have to go back and look at my wind again, and then it'll change. And I think these observations, if I remember correctly, they update about every, they will have an update 5 minutes, but you've got to force the update by actually refreshing the page. So let me back out of this. And another one, let me go back to the home page here. Another really interesting thing is this is the smoke model here. There's certain counties that contribute to this model, and it's really helpful if, okay, let's say you're going to burn a fire and you want to know where your smoke is going to go. This is how you would interact with this page, and all these counties that are highlighted, this is where that model is run. So any counties outside of those colored areas, there's no contribution, so there's no data available. However, if you were like in this county and the wind conditions they're going to be pretty similar to your neighboring county, so you can still get a pretty general idea of where your smoke can go. So what does this look like? Let's just click on Fire Impacts tab. And I clicked on this earlier. I just clicked on Northeast Butler. Let me make a big fire. It's a little bit easier to see if you make the fire bigger. And if we click on a fuel load, you can kind of hover across. There's light, there's medium, and we'll do heavy. We'll pretend we're burning a heavy fuel load over 5,000 acres. And then you set the date. And then I click on this button to view your fire impacts. And it will generate. So there it is for tomorrow. If I was to do bad things tomorrow, because we're in that very high category, and if I was to start a fire right in somewhere, I think I was in Northeast Butler County. Once the script runs, it'll recycle here. Just got to let it run through the cycle. It's kind of slow, but there it is. That's which way your smoke will go. And then if the fire was still going for tomorrow, we got a front coming through the following day or on Friday, and then the smoke would be going the other way. So it's kind of a really interesting sight, and it's kind of cool to see that if I was to have a fire, it would tell you where your smoke would travel during the next 48 hours. All right, I'm going to back out of this. And I think I pretty much covered everything. That's most of the products and the tools that we have on our webpage that's very helpful for just looking at the forecast in general, planning prescribed burns, and knowing which days are good days to burn and which days to definitely not be burning. That's all I have. So I'm open for any questions that anyone has for me.
All right. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question, Chris. One of the tools that we really love, it's experimental, the experimental graphical hazardous weather outlook.
Okay.
Do you know if that's something that they're going to keep, or are they kind of looking at maybe not?
Is it this one that you're talking about? You know.
Yes, I love that.
Okay. Yeah, we hope they do. I don't see. I'm not hearing anything that they're going to change that. This just kind of falls out of our forecast data, and it has a lot of different risk categories: severe thunderstorm, tornado. You know, all the main hazards that that we're forecasting or that could affect the area. And then it has these, like, we call them like little chiclets for each period. And then there's a scale here, a risk level, and it kind of talks about that. So right now I'm on the grassland fire danger index, but if I was, let's say, for example, let's click on excessive rainfall for Friday. The graphic will change for that. It looks like southeast, not looking so good for us. Looks like southeast Kansas, and this falls right out of our grids, has some potential for some elevated risk for heavy rainfall to affect southeast Kansas. So it's kind of just a quick way to, and I'm glad that you brought that up, Marcy. Yeah, it's a neat way to quickly look, okay, what hazards should I be concerned about, over the upcoming days? And it's just a easy glance to kind of pick and choose. Okay, what is it? Okay, we know we got the winds on Thursday. That's what the winds look like. And then if we look at GFDI, we have that. So it's a very useful, just one-stop shop to quickly look at what the risks are for those upcoming days.
All right. Good question. What else do you guys have?
I'm going to try my hardest. Go ahead.
I don't have any more questions, but I do appreciate this because I completely forgot about the wind graphic that you brought up before. I learned when I first started, I did the graphical, but that would be good for us also when they call in the prescribed burn.
Okay. Are you talking like the tabular versus the graphical one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because like I said, it's not the easiest to navigate because you have to go all the way down to the bottom when you're on that hourly weather graphical to click on the tabular. If you don't know it's there, you'll never find it. And that kind of looks like those threat matrices that we throw out there, for certain people. Kind of has that similar look to it. Like I said, I'm going to try my hardest to make it rain here. I'm trying real hard here.
All right. That was awesome, Chris. I appreciate it. You guys have any other questions? You've got a mastermind here at the your fingertips, so feel free to try and stump him. All right. If not, I will definitely share this recording with all of you once I get it uploaded to the World Wide Web. If you guys do have questions, shoot them to me. I can forward them on to Chris or whatever that looks like. And I encourage you guys just to get on your local weather service websites and navigate around them, and you will learn a lot. It's a lot of fun. So I enjoy it.
There's a lot of info there.
There is. Well, Chris, do you have any parting thoughts before we end for this evening?
Well, thank you for setting this up, Charlene. I really appreciate it. And we definitely enjoy, these type of events and stuff where we can share information with people, because we do have a lot of stuff out there, and we have a lot of knowledge, and there's a lot of safety information too that we provide that just a lot of people are not aware of, because we do an awful lot of talks. I mean, we do these webinars, we go out and do spotter talks, we do school talks, we have tours. We do a lot of outreach, and that's just trying to get all our knowledge and expertise out there to where people can utilize that. As we're a resource, we're federal employees, we're here for you. I mean, we work for you to keep everyone safe and teach people about the weather. That's the whole reason why we exist.
All right. Well, very good. Well, everyone, thank you for attending this evening. Stay safe this spring, and let's hope we get some rain. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
All right. Night, everybody.
Take care, everyone.